Right. Here, everyone. It's with great privilege that we have Shailesh over here today with us as a political analytics. But more than an analytic, he is going to talk through us today about the labor policies. And before we start asking him some grilling questions, I would like to just briefly introduce him as a self-employed business advisory service provider, and he dwells into finance, accounts, and taxation, some of the very key and important things which are required nowadays for the New Zealand's economic growth. So, Shailesh, welcome, and thank you so much for sparing your time to discuss some of the policies and from a common man's perspective, what is going to help New Zealand going forward.
Yes, thank you so much, Sheerali, and welcome to all the listeners once again from me as well. And it's a good pleasure for me and Sheerali to talk to you about us today, about the current issues, current policies of all political parties. Being the election year is very critical. So first and foremost, let me just tell everyone, irrespective of whatever who you like or who you don't like, still cast your vote. That's the first thing I would like to say. And today is the first day that actually the voting starts, which is the overseas voting starts today. From today onwards, overseas people can vote. And then next Monday is actually the early voting starts. So yeah, so thank you once again, Sheerali, for this beautiful day today that we are going to talk about lots of things. And as a common man, I would like to put a lot of things from my perspective, my opinions, my suggestions. So this is not something that I'm telling that this is the right or this is wrong. Yep. So let's make it more like a conversation where, as a common man, what is in it for me? And this is the slogan, what's in it for me, as Chris Hipkins says, which is the current Labour Party who is ruling our country, basically. So thank you so much once again, Sheerali. Let's dwell into this and we'll talk as we go along.
Sure. So what I do understand, Shailesh, that there is a 10-point plan which Labour is working on currently.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So basically I'll just bring this 10 points, 9 points, actually. I'll just bring these 9 points that Labour is planning to do with regard to their policies and related to their policies. Okay. So let me just share the screen up on the screen and bring this up. So that's what it is. Yeah. See, these are the personal commitments of our leader and the Prime Minister, current Chris Hipkins, who has given this 9-point program that he wants to do and make a difference to the coming days, on to the coming years. But as a common man, let's dwell on it. And Sheerali, I'll give it the reins to you. So let's.
Yep. So it's very interesting, these points which they have mentioned over here. And I do believe the opposition party has also come up with a similar plan. But we will talk about that on a later date. So if you look at these points, free dental care for under 30-year-olds, removal of GST from fruit and veggies, financial literacy required in schools, expand 20 hours free early childhood education to 2-year-olds, extra $25 per week for more than 160,000 working families, add 300 more frontline police, 4 weeks paid parental leave for partners, trade mission to India in the first 100 days, and make apprenticeship boost permanent. Now, these are very big points which they have made. But I'm curious to know, from their In It For You slogan, as a common man, which of these points do you see are the most important ones for us?
Yeah, good question, because there's some of the basic burning issues that we currently face after COVID, after pandemic has melting down. We still are into that recession kind of mode, which people have got a perception, and lots of perceptions are true, lots of perceptions are not true. But this is, again, every economist and every person decides to go their own way of what is it really true and what is it not true. But one thing is sure, that the cost of living, one of the key ingredients, which affects our day-to-day life. And after COVID, particularly during COVID, we never worked. So what we get is all what we were supported by the government. And again, we paid taxes on those. So that didn't really save much for us, but it survived. And that's what their policy was, to survive. So like save the lives and save the livelihoods was their slogan at that time. And
Mm.
this is what they maintained that. And after that, now that COVID has come down a lot of to the bare minimum, but still we have got the pressure and the stress from that, which is the cost of living, which is the rate of interest. Particularly if you look at the mortgage, the bank
Mm.
interest has shot up quite like nowhere what we were during COVID. So from 2.5 or 2% to just 8% and 9% and 7% is just not really was expected. And within a short span of 18 months, that's really, really too much high for people to absorb as a common man. So when you go to buy groceries and all, also the basic cost of food was increased. So inflation and then the bank interest. And our livelihood depends on all these two major factors, that we want to eat. So we want to go and buy basic stuff. And we want to survive through our roof. And all our houses basically are mortgaged. And the rate of
Mm.
interest is really, really high, which we can't afford. And we can't expect the government also to pay for it basically every time. But then this is what it is, not no one's fault as a common man. We inherited all these things and now we are continuing with this. So to me, if you ask me, Sheerali, I think cost of living is one of the key things, and cost of living includes lots of things like the basic shopping, like your basic needs for doctor's visits,
Yep.
your health, your health, your rent, your mortgage, all related, and your food, all related to your basic fundamental rights of a human being that we want to live on. So that is affecting big time. So I think this is something that really, really needs to be addressed. And if you look at in their policies, what they have trying to do here, if you look at the, what you call it, the extra $25 per week for working families,
Yep.
so they have targeted the families so that, there is a cost which is already high. So
Mm.
they cannot maintain with the existing. So they try to give that to the families as a whole, that extra dollar, so that they can spend easily on, or if not easily, they can at least meet their requirements, the basic requirements that they can meet for basic food, for basic rent, and for basic, health expenses. The other thing that I could say that, they have done is with that, make apprenticeship boost permanent. And that something is like an ongoing for people to earn money.
Yep.
I think that was a very good kind of policy that they want to continue. They
Mm-hmm.
want to make that permanent, because that was introduced during COVID, because we lost jobs. People didn't had don't know what to do. People had to change their jobs. They had to forego and liquidate companies. They had to stop what they were doing, and now they wanted to look at different things they want to do. And that was a good policy at that time, that the government was saying, okay, change your profession, do whatever you like, and make yourself explore to your another skills. And for that, the government was helping through this apprenticeship boost program. And now it has worked, because what it has done, it has kept the unemployment rate down,
Yep.
basically. And that's what is the main focus now also, that if you are not employed, then you can't even earn. And if you can't earn, then you can't spend on your basic things. And then you are relying completely on the government to give for everything. But that was not the idea of the government at that time, that let's make them, give opportunity and options to change their profession, to change their trade even. But to do that, obviously they had to support, and they came up with this apprenticeship program, which was good. And so I think the families tax credit, which is the working for families, and then the apprenticeship, they go very much hand in hand with the peace of mind and the mental health as well of the people, that, hey, I don't have a job which I was doing, but I do have something that I can actually add to my skills, and I can go and ask to do the job or to do the apprenticeship which government is paying for, and I can try my new skills. And that's something, a good peace of mind. That's what I think. These two things were very much for the basic cost of living. The other thing they did, which is, I don't know, remove GST from fruit and veggie. I'm a little bit concerned about this, that this is a good thing to see that, okay, there is also, it is like it gives the people to have good healthy food and eat more fruit and veggies. But the problem with this GST, the prices are so high that even if you want to buy more fruit and veggies, the prices are already high before. And now even if you buy them, or if you tend to buy when this law comes into effect, it is going to be still not that effective. But still, it's a like very tiny bit of difference in the scheme of things as a cost of living. Cost of living, I would rather would have, seen some more reformation in lots of existing cost rather than anything else.
True.
They are also coming up with the health, which is dental care, which is good under 30-year-olds, because that's where most of the people, but then old people also have got lots of issues of dental.
Exactly.
And
I think they have more issues with the.
correct, correct.
So that's something like a very
Mm.
interesting point when I saw that under 30-year-olds, which is
Um,
good, but is it good enough? That
Yeah,
was my thing. And before we just continue, Shailesh, you mentioned about removal of GST from fruit and veggies, right?
yeah. Mm.
I that's my opinion, that we are in a duopoly in terms of supermarkets over here. We
Yeah,
got food stuff, we got Woolworth, the countdown.
yeah.
So I think that is the main issue which we are facing right now, that we are just having two major competitors. We don't have much of choices. And
Mm.
when there is a monopoly or a duopoly, the prices are basically guided by them. It's
Sure.
not the high prices. And when you're talking about this $25 per week thing for the working families,
Mm.
which again is a good thing, but my
Mm.
question or my
Mm.
opinion is like, is it again good enough? What about the other people? We
Yeah,
don't have just families over here, right? We have a lot of people on visas. We have a lot of single people. So
absolutely.
what's being done for them? Do you think like
Mm.
among all these things which we are seeing in these points about the parental leave or
Yeah.
the $25 thing or the ECE thing,
Mm.
are people who are not having families, who are not part of families but who are more single, are
Yeah.
they being left out from these commitments?
Good question. Good question. And I think what I have seen is when COVID came in, and before COVID, even when the Labour government came in 2017, what they have maintained throughout this whole 4 years, 5.5 years, 6 years almost now, is they have increased the minimum wage for everyone. So
Hmm.
that's something they have given even before prior COVID. So I personally feel that was a personal growth development to your question, which is very good question, because what's in it for me, not as a family, but as an individual, not as an individual, but as a businessman, not as a businessman, but as a, compiling of whatever we do together as a partner or thing. So what's in it for me? Everybody is going to look at from their perspective. If they are individual, if they are solo parents, if they are single mom or single dad, if they are joint family or family with, with kids and all of that. So it's definitely a good question you asked. But I think the only thing that they did, and they maintained, and when they did that, there was a backlash that they don't need. And particularly there was a more backlash when the COVID came in. And most of the people thought that minimum wage should have been stopped. Minimum wage should not have been
Yes.
increased.
Yes.
And I remember the words of Labour, particularly just in the saying that, if you don't develop now, then when? And if we just keep saying and delaying that, no, this is not the right time, then when is the right time? And I think that's maintained that, and maintaining that, they are continued that in spite of the COVID, and even after COVID, and even after it is now meltdown, they have time by time increased the wage, minimum wage. But also they have been talking as well about living wage, because minimum wage after COVID and during COVID was not still enough. But still, there was something that they had, right? But also they maintained with the tertiary education free for kids. and
Hmm.
and that was also a good policy. Basically, again, less burden of finance as an individual who wants to study, as an individual, independent kids. Kids here, they go become independent, but they are on their own. They don't need all the time mom and dad's help. But that was an independent policy, that tertiary free education was a good policy, I personally feel, and it is still there. So I think they did something with regard to those aspects, what you questioned. But again, this is my view. And again, this will be, is it, was it good enough for, or is it too much or too less or too little? What it is, that everybody can decide for their own. It's not my place to tell them that was it working for you or not working for you. But one thing is sure, that the unemployment rates has come down
Yep.
to drastically, which is they have maintained. And I don't think any other country has got that level of unemployment rate, which we have got. So which is really a good thing and a good tick for a small economy like us. Yeah.
That is true, Shailesh.
Mm.
My next question would be like something which I believe is a burning issue as well, and you can correct me if
Mm.
I'm wrong, is about the safety and community well-being.
Yeah.
In the recent past, especially since COVID, we have seen a spate of ram raids and burglaries, and especially the small businesses being targeted. Right.
Mm.
So, what do you think that, what is some details about the labor's plans for enhancing that safety of the community, and how are they planning to strike a balance between the law and the social programs?
Yeah, very good. Because that is all of a sudden it has surged, because it wasn't there before COVID that much.
Yep.
It wasn't there. It became, even in during COVID, it wasn't there that much at all.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, just when COVID was going down, 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 and then all of a sudden this new issue came, like another pandemic. This was like another pandemic, particularly in a city like Auckland, that we
Yep.
witnessed. And Auckland is one of the strongest, the contributor to the New Zealand economy.
Economy. Yep.
And it's really, really sad to see that Auckland never faced this kind of issues before. And in all this that I've been here on this last 2 decades, more than, I haven't witnessed that much level of this. But then there are contributing factors, in my view, in my opinion. I personally feel, this is my personal opinion, but people can make their own choices. If you remember, Sheerali, there were lots of talks about 501, which is with Australia, TT, which was the prisoners in Australia who were sent out to New Zealand. And there was a lot of hue and cry about that whether they should send or they should not send. And there were lots of discussions during during Nationals' time, then after Labour's time. It was still never sorted that whether it is the right thing to send the criminals or send the offenders back to their country.
Yep.
I think that was the biggest change. And then Australia and New Zealand has always been very close and neighbors. And we always transfer people from one country to another country. And the level of crime and level of thing that you are talking about, that we witnessed and you witnessed and I witnessed as well in Auckland, was very, very harsh for everyone to really absorb. That happening in New Zealand was a big question mark. And regularly happening, every day happening. So then obviously questions were raised. Is the police doing enough? Or is the level of criminals have gone from what it was before to a different dynamics, where the police are not even able or trained to handle this or to maintain this? Those were the mind-boggling questions came. That were they harsh, were they too soft on crime, or were they were not able to, or were they were not able to witness this kind of crime, that they were not able to handle it? There was a lots of questions raised. And to that, I think what Labour did, what they are doing, is they realize that there is lack of staff or lack of police force. And having said that, they tried to put lots of money into that and lots of recruitment into that. And all of a sudden, we saw a lot of good recruitment for people. And that is true, that we were having a shortage of police staff to handle certain crimes and to handle certain offending. So I mean, extending the and recruitment was one aspect, but then giving the power, giving the tools, and giving the resources, and putting arms and ammunitions to the police force was another thing that they
Yeah.
realized they didn't had that much before. So then again, you got to realize, Shirali, I think what I understand is there is a lot of law changes, legislation changes. Even when the Christchurch attack happened, the gun laws had to
Yep.
be changed, and there were lots of immediate decisions were taken to change laws and stop this happening, the crime that happened at that time. So that was taken care at that point with the guns. But then here, they don't know whether we should stop the crime with this aspect or that aspect. It was a big question because it was like petty things, but then things turned out very bad when this turned out into not just a robbery or ram raids, but it turned out into violence for people's health, for
Hmm.
people's life. And one of the person also died, if you remember,
Yep.
in that raid, in the ram raids. So that was a really turning point, and that was really concerning. But then after increasing the police force, after giving arms and ammunition to the police, but also after giving more community engagement and more safety and security measures for the stores and for the shops, like the cannons and all sorts of smoke alarms and all those kind of things were introduced, which was given by the government, which is good thing in the future, looking at the future point of view. But again, this is something that they are still working on. It's still in a work in progress. But I think overall, now it has all of a sudden it increased, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden now it has also reducing. Now every day we don't see an article about ram raid, but we do see occasionally. But there was a time, every day there was, like almost every day, somewhere or the other, not just in Auckland, but also outside Auckland. So I don't
Yes.
I don't know the situation currently, what I can tell, but they are putting some measures into the right direction to reduce and the crime. But also there was a talk about punishment. There was a talk about what offenders these get punishment, whether they should be punished or not, whether they should be put into prison or not. Again, that was a big discussion, and every political party has got their own way of dealing with these crimes, because some think that this is because they are too soft, something there is no harsh punishment, some things, and so there is a different views. But ultimately what matters is these were young people.
Yep.
But
That was my next question to you, in fact, about
yeah,
that, the concerning thing, the ram raids, like if you look at one perspective, you'd say it happens in every country, right?
yep.
But it didn't happen in New Zealand, and we were like considered to be the most peaceful country at
Mm,
one point. So we have taken a hit in our image, our global image as such. But what is more concerning to me is the age of the people involved in these ram raids, them, and some of them being, like as young as 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. So that is concerning. But and to talk about those punishments which you said, the
yeah,
government has been not accused, but going soft on crime. That's something which they have mentioned, and
yeah.
they do prefer taking a reformist view with respect to the offenders, which is
Mm,
good in a way. But that
mm,
brings me to the next question: that why do these kids, as young as these kids which we spoke about, are indulging in these things? Do
mm,
you think it's got anything to do with the literacy or the education of
mm,
New Zealand,
yeah.
which again has taken a beating in the global ratings, especially around the STEM fields?
Mm,
So, and I can see they are thinking of introducing something at financial literacy. So, what do you think, like in terms of the education field? Where
yeah.
does Labour stand on that, and how can they make the lives of the youngsters better?
Mm. I 100% agree with your question that financial literacy or even education, basic education or awareness of education is the key thing for any youngsters to be molded into or to be brought into that mindset that education is the key thing. Whether you do a trades education, skilled education, or a academic education, doesn't matter. Education is the key for the mental health and well-being of every young, than when they are young. Because when they don't have anything to get educated, that's where the direction is gone to altogether a different direction, where they think it's a freestyle direction for any human, for youngsters to go into independent direction is good. Because, but the thing is, if they don't have educated, if they are not aware of what they are getting into, then that becomes a big issue. You
True.
know, whatever youngsters do, as long as they are aware of what they are doing, is what is the key. And to get that awareness, they need to get educated themselves from all the aspects of surroundings that they are living in. And that is the key thing which any government, to me, not just Labour. But I think if you look at from the historical point of view, if you ask me, then yes, Labour has always been in the education mode. Health and education has always been their priorities. Now, whether making education free, with this latest policies of tertiary education free, which is a good thing for them to get access to, so that they don't have any complaints that, hey, I don't have money or I don't have any support, but they don't need, because the government is supporting them to get educated free, basically. Now, the question is, as you said, education is very key, but it starts from our home rather than
Yep.
just from the school. As a parent, you know, if the parents are not educated or aware of what they are, then they will just be very casual about it with their kids as well. And I think that is something that we need, an adult literacy, not just a
Yep.
kids literacy.
I agree. I agree.
So to me, it's the very key thing. We used to have an adult literacy long time back, apparently, and they used to have evening classes for adults
Yep.
as well. But that's not there anymore. That it was cut. The funding was cut for that. They wanted to bring that back, which is what is going to be the build the communities. Otherwise, there are many people who don't have work and who are after retirement. They don't have anything to do
Yep.
to a certain age. And then that wisdom is all lost, because they have got the educated wisdom that can be shared with the youngsters and the younger generation. But if there is no platform in place, then they are not going to get educated. So I think financial literacy required in schools is absolutely was required 40 years ago, if you ask me, not now. Because that's what I've been advocating, that financial literacy is the key. You know, I got educated myself with not just finance, but law and management and all sorts of things. Why? Because I wanted to be aware of what's actually happening to me when things happen. And that can only happen with the schools. In the schools, that should be a compulsory. Financial literacy should be a compulsory.
I
Many
agree.
many people don't even know the financial implications that they have if they are
Yep.
not. So to me, yes,
Absolutely.
yeah. So financial literacy definitely is an important tick, and it's in the right direction at the moment. Too late, too little, but then at
Yep.
least not never. It is never too late when you
Never
start.
too late.
Yeah.
That's very informative, Shailesh. Just last couple of quick questions. I could see that they have mentioned, or they have come up with a new fiscal policy in the morning, and they
Yes.
have speaking about tight spending and
Mm.
in the next term if they do come, and they have some plans around that, and that I think ties up neatly to their this point on doing a free trade agreement with India being one of their points as well. What
Mm.
do you think, in your opinion? Do you think what's your long-term vision? Where do you see the labor going in social and economic development with this free trade agreement with India and with this new fiscal policy of theirs?
Yeah, I think if you ask me honestly, after COVID and during COVID, and when Jacinda came in, when Labour came in 2017, lots of things were identified by this government that has not been done for a long time. And I think I give a little bit credit to Jacinda's leadership on that front, for some of the things and for reformative things that she acknowledged. The first thing she acknowledged was the child poverty in our country, being a first world nation. And
Hmm.
taking the responsibility of a children's portfolio for a prime minister is absolutely, absolutely important for any leader to show the leadership. I remember John Key in National's time, he took the portfolio of tourism. And tourism is one of the key thing of New Zealand. So
Yep.
you need a leadership to show and to increase and to grow our economy and country. So that was a great thing done by John Key at that time. But then Jacinda, grounded into the realities of New Zealand as a first world nation, took the responsibility of child poverty and the children's, well-being and mental health was one of the key things. But then she also identified that we were too much dependent on other countries. As a small
Hmm.
country, yes, we don't have our own. And she identified that we should not be selling any assets, or we should
Hmm.
not be giving the control to the foreigners or to the overseas for controlling our land. And that's where she went into the ban mode. But then on the same token, she said that overseas we need them. And how did she prove by that? She went into EU and she
Hmm.
made a free trade. She went into UK and made a free trade. She went into Australia and also discussed the free trade. And they all were implemented under Chris Hipkins' leadership when she left. So
Yep.
she done the basic work for development of economic development of our country through the free trade. So we
Hmm.
were only having free trade with China, remember? And we have been in this country, I mean, being independent for last 100 or more than 100 years. And we never thought of having a free trade with our own partners like Australia, UK, US, and that's what EU, and that's what was done. So I think it's the right direction this country is going when it comes to economic development. But India, also India's has been there since national. We were trying to have a free trade with India, but it didn't happen, and it's probably will not happen that soon, according to me. The
Yep.
reason being is very simple. It's we are agricultural country. India is also agricultural country, and there is no kind of trade-offs in that area.
Hmm.
But there could be lots of free trade onto different pick and choose in certain products, certain services that we can exchange and we can
Hmm.
increase our trade. That's definitely is there. But whether the India wants to look at New Zealand as a small trading partner, or whether they only look for big trading partners, that's another question which
That's a different point
different
point
ball
of view.
game.
True.
But New
True.
Zealand will always want New Zealand is always committed that they are small. And
Yep.
but New Zealand has always made big countries like UK, US, and Australia, and
Yeah.
EU. They have made trade partners them. So if they have agreed with us to trade partner, I mean, there is nothing stopping India should do that. But again, it's up to India whether
Yep.
they accept it, because
True.
it's a matter of the bigger party, as we
Yep.
say, the bigger fish has to accept the smaller fishes, right?
Yep. True.
Not
True.
not eat them, but have to have a good trade with them. So
Yep.
in
New
my
Zealand is
Mhm.
part of the Five Eyes, so it is an important country from that perspective as well. So yeah, it will be. I believe it will be mutually beneficial, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all depends on each country ultimately, but
Yep.
I feel that it will be a good direction. What Chris
Mm.
has said that we would like to go and do
Yep.
India. At least he has shown the first step of
Yep.
having a free trade or having a trade deals, something. So he's going to explore that. So I think that's a direction in the right direction, I would say, in terms of the current policy that they are coming up with. So that's a good direction. Yeah.
My last question, Shailesh, is like, as a general person, and you don't have to be like, I'm not trying to put you on the spot,
No,
but
no.
as a general
Go ahead.
person, like since you talk to so many people around, how
Mm.
do you think the general public is, like responding to the Labour's campaign right now, their key pledges? Do you think they are generally happy, or do you see a lot of criticism being spoken about? Because there are so many polls being conducted here and there, and
Yeah.
they're all going like a roller coaster up and down. What do you think is a general feel right now?
Yeah, to me, when I look at it in this format. So Labour had this uncertain, unforeseen circumstances during the last 6 years. In fact, the whole country had witnessed it.
Yep.
Whether it was opposition or ruling doesn't matter. Everybody witnessed it. The whole natural disasters, whether
Yep.
it is the White Island, whether it is the Christchurch attack,
Yep.
it is the pandemic, you name it. And there was one after.
Cyclone.
And then the Gabriel cyclone at the
Yep.
start of the year that's definitely was
Adivasity. Yep.
one of the so. And one thing I noticed, and if you touched me just before that, and I wanted to continue on the fiscal policy, just to touch on that, that today's when I also was witnessing the fiscal policy of Labour, in that they mention all of these things as well. But one thing I noticed that, with the general public also having that, and I leave up to the general public to take their own calls, but with the fiscal policy, what they were trying to address and what I have witnessed myself all these 6 years looking after everything, they have managed to control and maintain of all the natural disasters, of all the uncertain calamities, they still have managed to come back as per the fiscal policy. They have come back into the direction where any country would like to be in.
Yep.
In spite of the fact that our low debt ratio or low, everything in low employment rate, unemployment rate is the lowest, and our debt equity ratio is also the lowest to the mark.
Yep.
Our surpluses are heading towards there, whether at least we can see there is a surpluses could happen. There is no such thing like it's a dark or completely
Yep.
black out. So I think there is a lot of positives in that fiscal policy that was announced today. And I think let's be realistic about this government or any government we would like to have with us is to be realistic and to be very much transparent. And
Yep.
from that point of view, I think Labour has maintained that transparency so far. I mean, they have done mistakes. It's not that they haven't. I mean, they have done some blunders, probably somebody might think as a general public. When I listen to people, they say this is bad, that is bad, this is good, this was great, health was great policy, first health policy was
Yep.
good, second was bad, all of these things I hear. But one thing I would like to just mention to everyone, including myself, that okay, we have all ups and downs in our life as a general man, as a general person as well. But then we manage and we maintain and we still move forward. We still want change. We still want every time change. And that's a good thing. But change in the right direction, change in the direction that we will not fall is what we should be looking for, rather than change and then completely unknown. And we want a change and then we fall ourselves and then we think, oh, that was better than what it was now.
Yep.
So rather than regret, let's accept the changes, but also accept the changes with the natural realities that we are looking into. So what I heard, that even if we have another calamity like pandemic or anything, the current government in the today's fiscal policy, they said that we are ready for it. We have got enough funding for that. So that is something that's very positive for people to listen, and people like me who understand a little bit of finance from that angle, that yes, I'm comfortable that, okay, at least I will not be completely shut out, that way. And again, we will talk about other policies of other political parties as well. But I think as of today, what Labour, if you ask me, and as a general public, if you ask me, and the feelings that I hear from all the normal people, they do like to see a little bit of change because they are tired of what they have witnessed. Okay. And that's very normal and very natural for any human, because they cannot go back to what they were earning. I remember a time when during the COVID, they wanted to go back as soon as possible. So they want to remove the lockdown as soon as possible, and they want to go back to the normal, which was not possible.
Which wasn't possible, no.
Because that was not the reality they were looking at. So let's face it, let's face the realities, what I'm saying. I mean, let's change. And I remember the words of Jacinda, like, this is accept and adapt to the new norm. Don't think this is the normal. Okay?
True. True,
And I
true.
think I will leave up to that for the voters as well, for the listeners
Yep.
as well, that, do you want to adopt to the new norm, or you want to go back and say that I didn't get what I'm getting now, I should be getting the same earnings what I was getting pre-COVID? Then I think you are being unrealistic,
Unrealistic.
which is in
Yeah,
my.
adapting to the new normal, I think that's the buzzword around the
Mhm.
world. But yep, we are just trying to express our opinions.
Yes.
Shailesh correctly said, and we will be discussing in future about the other key parties' policies and leaving up to the voters to decide what
Mm.
is the best for them. Thank you very much, Shailesh, for
Yeah.
that wonderful insights, and I think that's some really good key takeaways for everyone out there. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much. And I just want to make a last point to all the listeners, to all the viewers who are listening. Please cast your vote, because this is very important and
Yes,
critical. Because
yes,
I think if you don't cast your vote, irrespective whether you like Labour, National, Green, and
yep,
there are lots of parties. And to me, this is good democracy that some of the small parties are coming up, which is
yep.
really good, because their perspectives, their opinions, their suggestions are also important. So we will dwell on that more in our next episode, because I am fascinated with some of the smaller parties who have come up to that level of
Yep.
becoming bigger parties. So I'll leave it to that, to the viewers as well, and to the listeners, that, hey, nothing is wrong at this point, because when you see that everything is going down and you want a change, the change is, we can see a lot of smaller parties are coming up. That's a good change as a democratically, if you ask me. I mean, people do have opinions. No, we want a majority party, or we want a full controlled party. That's another way of looking at things, however, to get things done. But I think the synchrony of New Zealand is, we are, I think, 200 plus languages in our country. So when we look at that point of view, we want diversity, and unity in diversity is very important. And New Zealand is one of the country I always relate to my own birth country, India, which is unity in diversity. We
True.
have got so much diverse people, but we are united when it comes to natural issues, when it comes to, nation. So we are all, this is all building our nation, as we say, and this is my slogan, says, working together, building our nation. And so with that, I once again urge to all the voters, today the voting has started for the overseas. Next Monday will be starting the actual early voting. So please cast your vote as early as possible, and also make country as one of the first country to have 100% voting.
Oh,
Right?
that would be wonderful.
Isn't it? Don't
That
you
would
think,
be
Shirali?
wonderful.
I mean, we can only urge to all people,
Yep,
you cast your vote no matter whichever you want, and let's make this country the first one, not just first women's voting rights, but
yep.
let's make it first country who can make 100% voting voted by the people. So with that, I leave that note to you, Shirali, and thank you once again for inviting me and asking me those political questions. But also, political is not, these are, I don't call it this political questions, I call it, this is more community driven,
Yep.
more that matters to us, more it makes an impact to us. So your vote is not going to make a difference to the political parties, but your vote is going to make a difference to yourself. So think about it. With
Thank
that,
you.
I will end this. Yeah.
Thank you, Shailesh. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, and looking forward to our next meeting.
Pleasure.